Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Matric History Caps 2023. As I had mentioned in my previous video, we'll be able to do critical skills, which will be helping us to tackle history for this year so that you're able to get as many marks as you can. So let's get right to it. So the document that you're looking at right now is a self-study guide, which I'll provide a link to in the bio of this video, or it's down there in this description. So basically this guide is going to help you on how to have the cognitive level for answering your question, which basically means that when they say compare, teaches you what you must compare within the context, how you prepare for source-based questions, how you prepare for essay types of questions. Also, you must make sure that in your head, even though it's the first time you're preparing for exams, because you are training to go and write exams, so your mind must always be in exam mode. So for the year 2023, these are the topics which we'll be answering: the Cold War, the extension of the Cold War, which is Vietnam, independent Africa, civil rights or civil society protests from 1950 to 1970, civil society from the 1950s to the 1970s. So these are mainly some of the topics which we'll be focusing on. They'll be either given from source-based point of view or an essay form. So essentially what you need to grasp is the main crux or the main information within all of these topics, because a lot of information is given to you, but then you need to be able to suss out the important core information, and by doing so needs multiple forms of summaries or speech bubbles, but then we'll discuss that as it goes along. And then on the other topics would be civil resistance from the 1970s to the 1980s, specifically in South Africa, and how it continues, the coming of democracy, and then the after effects of the said democracy, right? So paper 1 and paper 2 will be 30 minutes each, if I'm not mistaken, for the finals. There will be source-based questions and essay questions, but then you must either choose 2 source-based questions, 1 essay, or 1 essay and 2 source-based questions. So that'll be depending on your strengths, what you view as your strongest points, the source-based questions or essay type of questions. But then for me personally, I believe every student should balance both of this 2 facets of the exam papers, because either way you must just know your information and how to relay it in the way in which they want it. Hence we're doing these videos. And then these are the last 2 questions, which is the end of the Cold War and then the New World Order as we know it. Essentially how it breaks down with Eastern Eurasia, and then how it impacts the rest of the world, because it even trickles down to South Africa. But then such information we'll have to study from our own textbooks. I'm just here to outline the important information which we need, so that all the information that you're learning actually becomes fruitful through your interpretation by how you write. As I'd mentioned before, when you get to the exam, you are required to answer 3 questions: 2 source-based questions, 1 essay, or 2 essay questions and 1 source-based, but then all totals up to 150. And as I've said before, I prefer a well-balanced student who either chooses to have source-based or an essay, but then they're able to maximize their output of points. With this type of requirement, they're very stringent on how they ask. They don't need a person answering, for instance, for 2 marks, having a paragraph essay of like 8 lines. They don't need that. Hence, they are outlining these requirements so that you know how to answer adequately. So let's start with source-based information, right? So source-based is usually visual or in written form. It depicts certain form of message, either biased or non-biased, but then it's trying to convey a message which you must be able to interpret. So obviously, the first thing when doing a source-based question is you must know the content and the background. Meaning that if you see a caricature in front of you, you must know why the caricature looks like that, why they exaggerated, for example, a money bag, or why they exaggerated certain words, or why they're using onomatopoeia. So essentially, you must know your content. You can't just go there and something information. Also, you must make sure that you read the keywords or the key information, so that you're able to focus on the area of importance, because there can be a lot of words, but then what if one is highlighted or one is in capital letters and then the ones in small letters? It's trying to signify something important. Then the third point is you must be able to know your concept and the timeline. It's very easy for a person to get the timelines confused, so you must be very smart with how you draw up your timelines of certain events. Fourthly, for most people, we are visual learners. So if you have a pencil and then you highlight the key ideas and the sources, that's able to help you so that you can suss out the non-important information from the important information, and then you relate in a logical manner. Fifth, you must be able to understand the phrasing of the question. By the phrasing of the question, there's a difference when they say compare the contrasts and compare the similarity of a happening. By contrast, you must show the differences between the two things as to why that is different from that, and there may be a correlation, but then they're different in their outcomes. And when they say compare the similarity, for instance, South Africa, we had segregation, it was called apartheid. In America, it was called segregation, but then both of these were aimed at disenfranchising people of non-Caucasian origin. So those are the things that you need to understand the phrasing of. And phrasing, that needs a lot of practice and also understanding why it is phrased that way. And then you must also be able to analyze the questions, because some questions, even in source based, could be in essay form. They need you to have a short write up. So you must be able to analyze the question, the mark allocation, and what it requires from a person. Also, you must provide answers according to the mark allocation. This is very important. Most often than not, people will write 6-7 lined paragraphs, but it's only for 1 mark. That sort of shies away the marker from actually acknowledging that you know your stuff. It seems as if you're wobbling information. Lastly, you must make sure that you read through your responses. In as much as the time allocated for your examination seems like a lot, time flies by. So you need to make sure what you're writing is well articulate, and you have time to check it and double check it so that your line of reasoning is actually proper. Thank you very much for watching this. On the next video, I'll continue analyzing critical skills for us to have excellent marks. Thank you.